We have lots of cables, earthy tone colour work jumpers, socks, and cozy oversized cardigans. I have 11 projects for fall to talk about. I can't wait for autumn to arrive. I am so impatient to start knitting cozy, woolly knits again. Hi, my name is Catherine and I'm a knitter living in the French Alps, and I share my knitting journey here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Patreon also. Today I wanted to share with you my dream autumn knits and maybe give you some new project inspiration along the way. Autumn is my favourite season of the year. I love to cuddle up on the settee with my cat under a comfy blanket, knitting away on a woolly knit with a cup of warm tea nearby. The projects I have compiled in this video are some of my favourites and they scream coziness to me in my opinion. So grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea or whatever you want and let me show you my selection. First of all, we have the Favo Sweater, or Favo. Not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. It's a pattern by Fiber Tales and I really love her designs. They have this rustic and natural feel to them, which I love. And I also love her podcasts, so go check them out if you haven't watched them yet. I have my notes down here, by the way, so if I'm looking down, I'm just looking at the pattern photos and my notes. Sorry if I'm looking down and not straight into the camera. So this jumper is a cozy oversized jumper. It has an overall honeycomb brioche texture down the sleeves, also down the sides of the front panel. In the middle of the front panel you have a really beautiful cable motif, and in the back you have a garter stitch panel. It's a high cropped fit and has a dropped hem, and yeah, it just looks really comfortable and chunky and really nice to wear. I really love the colours she chose in her sample. It's a really nice beige but has this kind of brownish pink tones to it, and that's due to the different colours she chose because it uses two strands of yarn held together. So about the pattern, it was published in February 2020, so it's not that recent. The pattern calls for worsted and lace held together. The yarn that she chose to knit the sample version in is, I'm not going to be able to pronounce the name of the yarn, so I'm just going to put it down and in the description box. So it's a 3-ply held with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. The recommended needles are 5mm needles or US 8. And the gauge is 14 stitches by 26 rows in stockinette stitch. This pattern has 8 sizes, which is, well, actually good. It's made for bust circumferences that range from 75 to 145 centimeters or 30 to 57 inch, and to which you add 40 to 45 centimeters of positive ease, which is 15.5 to 17.5 inch, which actually is a lot, but it's made to be very oversized, something that you put on top of a dress or something, and it looks stunning. I would go with the ease recommended in the pattern because the look of the jumper is just beautiful. I think that to get the same fabric effect that she has in her sample, you have to go with a similar type of yarn if you can't find the yarn described or suggested, and I would go for a similar colorway. Next we have the Camélia Sweater by Sumi Kim. This sweater has a lovely nostalgic vintage feel to it, and it's giving cozy autumn vibes, which is mainly due to the color palette used in the sample pictures, and I really like it. So I did talk about this pattern in my last Patreon video, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I had to include it because it just screams autumn vibes to me. So this pattern was published in November 2022. It calls for sport weight yarn. The designer used Boucle Laine Mérinos Alpaga, and I can't remember how many different colorways there is, but there's at least 3. I think there's 4 different colors. There's the main color, there's the red flowers, then also some golden brown I think, and then I think there's a touch of a 4th color in there. It just looks really good like this. The recommended needle size is 3.5, 375 and 4mm needles, which corresponds to US 4, US 5 and 6. The gauge is 23 stitches by 30 rows in stranded colourwork stockinette stitch after bucking. Unfortunately, this pattern only has 4 sizes for a finished bust circumference of 98 to 134 centimeters, or 38.6 to 52.8 inches. The pattern is in French, English and Korean. The jumper is knitted top down. It's a raglan construction, and so you start by shaping the neckline back and forth, and then you join in the round to start the yoke with the raglan increases, and then you separate for the sleeves. You put the sleeves on hold, and then you continue the body in the round, and then you pick back up the sleeves and knit them in the round too. Stitches are then picked up at the neckline to knit a folded neckband. I don't know which colours I would go for, honestly. Maybe something similar. I find it so difficult to choose colours in colourwork designs that involve more than 2 colours, because you have this vibe, this feel in your head, and you want to translate it into colours, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult to pair colours together. And sometimes you have a yarn in mind you want to use, but they don't have the exact colours you want. And so you have to find another brand or another yarn that has this exact perfect colour you want to use, but it's just complicated. So that's why I do like looking at project pages on Ravelry and also projects on Instagram, just for inspiration, colour combinations, and sometimes it really helps. Next we have the Diamond Jumper by Anne Wenzel. So I don't know when this was published, it's not specified on the Ravelry page. I really like this jumper because it does remind me of one I do have that was store-bought, and I really like it. It's very comfortable to wear around the house. It has an oversized fit, it has this really nice cable pattern all over. It is a raglan construction, but it has this nice detail where you have more than one column of stitches going down. It has more than one, and really nice. And it has a really chunky feel to it. It has this really chunky neckband, long sleeves, which I love. I've repeated really a bit too much. It absolutely looks gorgeous. So the pattern calls for bulky weight yarn. The suggested yarns are Gepard Guard Puno, Dustor Alpaca Puss, if that's the way you pronounce it, Camarose Snefnug too. So the needles that are recommended are 5 and 6mm needles, or US 8 and 10. It's nice to have a project on big needles because you have this project that's going to go really fast, and it's so satisfying. So the recommended gauge is 18 stitches by 24 rows in the pattern repeat on 6mm needles. Unfortunately, there are only 3 sizes available for a finished bust circumference of 113 to 127 centimeters, which is about 44.5 to 50 inch. However, the pattern is in a few languages: English, Danish, German, Norwegian and Swedish. So as I said, it's an oversized jumper with a raglan construction. It has a really nice cable pattern all over. It doesn't look that complicated to knit. First you work the neckband, then you make some short rows to shape the neckline, and then you move on to the yoke with the raglan increases. And the yoke, the body and the sleeves are all knitted in the round. Again, I think I would go for the same colorway as the designer chose in her sample pictures. I know I'm not that, I can't find the word. I know I like choosing what the designer proposes, and I really like beige and cream colors. I'm a millennial, what can I say? Though I do really like some like deep reds and deep greens and deep golden rust colors. I'm sorry, I have this reflection now on my face. I hope it's not too annoying for you. There's nothing much I'm going to be able to do about it, and I think I'm just going to finish the video as is. This is mosquito! As I was saying, yeah, I think that this color really suits the design. This is going to be a pain. Next we have the Mozart Pullover by Caitlin Hunter. Again, another designer which I love but I still haven't made anything from her, which is a shame because she has amazing designs too. It has this really nice cable and lace pattern repeat that is gorgeous. This is a pattern that was published in December 2024, so just a few months ago. I'm not completely sure what the suggested yarn weight is, because in the details on Ravelry it's written Aran, but the suggested yarn is worsted, which is a bit confusing. So I think this is because the yarn she knitted the sample with is discontinued, so the weights are a bit different, but she put some other suggestions to replace it. The yarn suggested is Lavender Loon Yarn Co. Flocculent Worsted, or Drops Air, or any other yarn that is equivalent. And actually any other yarn you can hit gauge with. The recommended needles are 4 and 5 millimeter needles, corresponding to US 8 and 6, or 6 and 8. The gauge is 20 stitches by 24 rows in the pattern repeat after blocking on 5 millimeter needles, or US 8. This pattern has 6 sizes. It is quite size inclusive because it makes a finished garment with a bust circumference of 95.5 to 197 centimeters, which is great, and that's about 37.75 to 77.75 inch. And the pattern is in English. So this pattern is knitted top down. I think it's a drop shoulder construction. You start at the back, you knit flat until you reach the armholes, then you pick at stitches at the shoulders. You knit the shoulders and make some increases to shape the neckband, well, not the neckline, sorry, and then you knit the front back and forth flat. When you reach the armholes, you join in the round, you knit the body in the round, then you pick up stitches for the sleeves and knit them in the round. As I said, this pattern has a really lovely cable and lace motif. It's very, very nice, and also the ribbing is very nice because it's not just plain 1x1 ribbing, it's slightly different. I think it fits the pattern motif much better than a 1x1 ribbing would have. I do like the colours she chose in her sample photos. It suits her very well. I am not sure it would suit me though. This colour is a bit too maybe greyish for me. I think I need something a bit more warm, a bit more brown or cream. Again, sorry, always the same colours, but what can I say? Next we have the Augustins Cables No. 3. Again, if you're one of my patrons, sorry I'm going to repeat myself here because I already talked about this in my last Patreon video. So this is a really nice, chunky, oversized jumper. It looks so comfortable, so soft, so cozy. It just screams the perfect jumper to me. It has some textured cables which aren't too overwhelming, and the detail that makes a huge difference to me is the neckband. It looks like it runs down the neck, runs down the top of the yoke, the shoulders, and then transforms into cables on textured pattern. It's gorgeous. This pattern was published by Anne-Sophie Velling, I forgot to say her name, and it was published in February 2025, so again a fairly recent pattern. It calls for 1 strand of sport weight yarn and 1 strand of lace held together, and in the sample she used onling number 20 and onling number 10 together. The needles recommended are 3, 3.5 and 4 millimeter, or US 2.5, 4 and 6. The gauge is 24 stitches by 30 rows in the given pattern with 4 millimeter needles, which is US 6, after blocking. The pattern comes in 8 sizes, again, which is great, for a bust circumference of 80 to 150 centimeters, or 31.5 to 59 inch, to which you have to add about 20 centimeters of positive ease. The pattern comes in English, Danish and Norwegian, and yeah, it's a really, really beautiful knit. It's knitted bottom up for a change and not top down. So you start with the body, which is knitted in the round. Once you're at the armholes, you knit the front and the back and forth, and the shoulders are shaped using German short rows, and the upper part of the yoke and neckband are knitted in ribbing, which gives this really nice seamless effect, which is really like the whole point of this design and makes it so different from the others, from a classic cable sweater. However, the sleeves seem to be very wide, especially at the cuffs. They're not flare, but they don't seem to have many decreases down the sleeve, and the cuffs seem very wide. I think if I do make this jumper for myself one day, I would try including some decreases down the sleeve to make the cuff tighter. I don't really like it when they're too wide. I like rolling my sleeves on my arms, and I like them to stay there and not fall down all the time. Yeah, it's just a personal preference, but in any case, it's a beautiful design. Next we have a cardigan. It's the Nordlig Cardigan from Fibertales again. Sorry, I just love her designs. This is a very cozy and chunky oversized cardigan. It's worked in brioche and has a lovely detail in the back. The direction of the brioche on the top of the back is like horizontal, and then at the bottom of the back it is vertical. So it has this interesting construction, which actually isn't really detailed in the details of the pattern. It just says it's an interesting construction that's not too complicated to follow. So it looks like you knit the back and the sleeves continuously in brioche. Then you pick up stitches to knit the body. I haven't bought the pattern, so I can't check, but that's what it looks like. It seems very interesting in any way. This pattern was published in September 2024. It calls for decade weight yarn. In the sample, she used her own yarn, Fibertales Organic Gotland 2-ply. She doesn't sell yarn all year long. I think she has a few drops here and there, so it might be a bit difficult to find a corresponding yarn that's equivalent to the one she used. I mean, it's doable, and on Ravelry there's a lot of projects out there, and you can have a look at all the yarns that other people have chosen and what it looks like, the fabric it's created, and see if you can find a project that looks like the result you're going for. The recommended needles are 3.5, 4 and 4.5 millimeter, or US 4, 6 and 7. The gauge is 16 stitches by 20 rows on 4.5 millimeter needles, or US 7, in brioche. The pattern has 9 sizes, which is great, and it's designed for a bust circumference of 75 to 155 centimeters, or 30 to 62 inch, to which you have to add about 20 to 30 centimeters of positive ease. And the pattern is in English. This really looks like a cozy cardigan to me, perfect for autumn. It looks light, it looks chunky, it looks comfortable. I wouldn't go for a grey colour. I mean, grey really suits the designer really well. For me, I think I would go for maybe a brown or a rust colour. I think that would be really nice. I don't know why, but for cardigans, I don't really want to go for a cream colour, but more for a brown or rust colour. Next, we have a gorgeous colorwork jumper. This is Pictus Pullover by Teti Lutzak. I don't know if that's the way you're supposed to pronounce her name, sorry. This is a beautiful jumper which is knitted in the round. It has a lovely colorwork pattern design that runs down the yoke, down the body, and down about to here on the sleeves. It also has a colorwork down the sides of the body, which is simple but adds a very nice feature that elevates the design, and it's beautiful. All of Teti Lutzak's designs are beautiful. For me, this one really stands out for autumn. So this was published in June 2023. It calls for fingering weight yarn, and in the sample the designer used Studio Donegal Dawny in colour oatmeal for the main colour, and Donegal yarns Kilcara Soft Donegal Tweed Singles, that's a long name, in colourway Sunset. The recommended needles is 3 and 3.5 millimeters, or US 2.5 and 4, and the gauge is 24 stitches by 28 rows in stockinette stitch in the round after blocking. The pattern comes in 9 sizes, again very size inclusive, to make a garment with a finished bust circumference of 80 to 173 centimeters, or 32 to 69.25 inch. That's including 10 centimeters or 4" of positive ease. The pattern comes in French and English, German, Italian and Spanish, which is great. I really love the yarn colors she chose in her sample. The rusty orange is actually a mix of browns, yellows and reds, and it adds a subtle color variation that pairs really well with the oatmeal in the main color. Again, I think I would go with similar colors because I just really love the colorways. Next we have an overall cable sweater this time, called HANNA Sweater by Suzanne Muller. This is an oversized jumper which has a simple overall cable texture. It looks so cozy and soft, perfect for fresh autumn days. I really like the drape of the fabric in the sample pictures, and the cables don't look too complicated to knit. This pattern was published in March 2025, and it calls for DK and lace held together to make a bulky weight yarn. There are 2 suggestions for yarn. There's Isager Jensen held with their silk mohair, or Lamana Como Grande held with Premia. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Recommended needles are 4 and 5 millimeter needles, or US 6 and 8, and the gauge is 21 stitches by 24 rows. The pattern comes in 4 sizes for a finished bust circumference of 114 to 141 centimeters, or 44.8 to 55.5 inch. So it does have a lot of ease, but it's not that size inclusive. The pattern does come in English and also German. About the construction, so it's knitted top down. It's a drop shoulder construction. You start by knitting the back, then you pick up stitches at the shoulders to knit the front, join in the round, knit the body in the round, pick up stitches at the sleeves, knit the sleeves in the round, and you also pick stitches at the neckline to knit the neckband, which is knitted in ribbing, as is the edges of the sleeves and the body. So yeah, it's a really nice jumper. It looks very comfortable and cozy, and I really like the overall cable pattern because it's a mix of cables but also looks like slip stitches, and I think it's very harmonious. Is that English? I think it works really nice together. The next pattern is the Mara cardigan by Brianna Mason. So for years I've had this perfect cardigan in mind after seeing a picture on Pinterest, and I could never find it in stores. I had this really perfect colour, perfect shape, perfect vibe, and this was before I started knitting, so I only relied on stores and just couldn't find it, and I feel like this pattern is that cardigan. It's a classic buttoned cardigan with a V-shaped neckline, and it has a relaxed fit, balloon sleeves, and it's worked in 1x2 broken rib, and this cardigan is just really nice. It was published in March 2025. It calls for fingering weight yarn held double to make a DK weight yarn. The sample was made with We Are Knitters Finita held double in a really lovely colour. The suggested needles are 3.25, 3.5 and 4mm needles, which corresponds to US 3, 4 and 6. The gauge is 21 stitches by 30 rows in 1x2 broken rib stitch pattern. This pattern is very size inclusive. It comes in 10 sizes for a finished bust circumference of 91 to 178.5 centimeters, which corresponds to 35 3/4 to 70 1/4 inch. And the pattern is in English. So this pattern is knitted top down. You start by knitting the yoke flat and add the raglan increases. You then separate the body from the sleeves, which are put on hold, and then you finish working on the body. You then pick up stitches on the sleeves to work them in the round, and decreases are made along the sleeve, especially at the wrist, to create this really nice balloon shape. The body and sleeves edging are worked in 1x1 ribbing, and the button band is added afterwards by picking up stitches along the front opening, and it's a doubled knit button band in stockinette stitch. I had a look on internet to see if I could find an alternative to We Are Knitters yarn, and I found Filcolana Peruvian. I've never used this yarn before, so I don't know how it feels, if it's itchy or soft, but It has the same meterage and has really lovely colours. There's actually 3 colours that caught my eye, and they're very similar but slightly different. There's the 817 Cinnamon Mélange. It's more brown, it doesn't have as much orange as the sample does, and it's less saturated too. There's also the Burnt Sienna, which is number 832, which is darker and it's like a deep red. It's a rich red colour. And there's also Red Squirrel, which is number 352, and I think that this colour is the one that looks the most like the one used in the sample. So yeah, I really love this cardigan. I have to make it one day. I have this picture in mind. This is the cardigan for a coffee shop stop in a cafe while reading a book. Next we have some socks. So yeah, socks do scream autumn because that's when you start being able to wear socks. Hand knit socks especially. So first we have the, I don't know how to pronounce this, I'm so sorry, Syysyö Socks. I'm sure that's not the way you're supposed to pronounce this. This is a pattern by Ronja Hakaleto. Again, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that completely wrong. These are lovely colourwork socks that are knitted with 4 different colours, the main colour, and then you have 3 different colours for the colourwork motif that is all around the leg. They are knitted with DK weight yarn, which is nice because they are faster to knit than socks knitted with fingering weight yarn. It looks like a really nice quick project to make. The chunky ribbing at the cuff makes these socks look even more comfortable and cozy. It looks like a folded edge, but I'm not completely sure. The description doesn't mention this, so you have to purchase the pattern to know more, but I really like them. The colourwork itself doesn't look too complicated. They're simple shapes. I think the difficulty here is working stranded colourwork with more than 2 colours at the same time. And I know it's already difficult to manage tension with 2 colours. I've never tried with like 3 colours before, so I don't know if it's that difficult, I don't know. Anyway, I do love the colour palette Ronja chose for her version. The colours are warm but fresh and very well balanced. The pattern was published in 2022 and calls for DK weight yarn, and the suggested yarn is Novita Nale. Not sure if that's the way you pronounce that. And the needle size recommended is 3mm and 3.25mm for the colourwork, which corresponds to US 2.5 and US 3. The gauge is 27 stitches by 36 rows in stockinette stitch after blocking. The pattern is in English and comes in 2 sizes. So the socks are knitted top down from the cuff to the toe, and as I said, they have this really nice colourwork pattern on the leg. The heel construction isn't specified in the details of the pattern. These socks are really beautiful. The colourwork is gorgeous and they just scream coziness. The last pattern I want to share is Springfrost by Syysyö Co. Again, these are colourwork socks, this time overall colourwork. The socks are inspired by the spring colours of the Arctic, which I know isn't very autumny, but you could go for a cozy autumn vibe by switching up the colours. For example, maybe using a mix of browns, greens, cream, a warm beige background, something like that maybe. That would be nice. This pattern was published in May 2022 and calls for light fingering weight yarn. She used Ba Ram Iwe Pip colourwork, if that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, but she also has some suggestions, which are Barocco Vintage Sock, Cascade 220 Heritage Solids, Knit Picks Stroll Merino, etc. I mean, there's loads of different yarns you could use for colourwork socks. The suggested needle size is 2.25mm needles and the gauge is 33 stitches by 40 rows. This pattern comes in 11 sizes, which is huge. You can find sizes for children, teens and adults, which is great. So the design is made for a foot circumference ranging from 11.5 centimeters to 31.75 centimeters, which corresponds to 4.5 to 13 inch, which is a really wide range, and I think that's really great. The pattern is also in French and English. The socks are knitted top down in the round and feature an all over stranded colourwork pattern. The heels are knitted using the afterthought heel technique, which I haven't done before because I'm fairly new into knitting socks. I love how Saskia & Co always knits her pairs of socks by switching up the colours between both socks. It's very interesting because you can see different colour options, but it's also a great way to use your yarn up as best as possible and avoid having lots of leftovers. If I were to knit these socks, I think I would go for a cream colour background with some dark rich forest green and a dark rich burnt red brown. I think those colours would like really give a forest mood and would be really nice together. So that's it for today. I do hope you enjoyed this video and that I could inspire some future projects maybe. I find it's always interesting to watch these kind of videos where you have a roundup of designs because it allows you to discover some designs you wouldn't have thought about or found on your own. And because now we're gonna transition into autumn, I thought it would be a good time to do an autumn roundup of designs I really love and are on my dream wish list. I really wish I could knit all of these. Honestly, I do not have the time, I do not have all the yarn necessary, or financially. I also have a lot of projects on my queue already, but they will stay on my wish list and I will knit them one day. Feel free to share some of your favourite autumn vibe designs to share with the community and other knitters. It's always nice to see what you're working on also, so don't hesitate to leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe to get notified when I publish more content. Side note, my first pattern design, the Annabelle scarf I was talking about in my last podcast, is currently in test knitting, which is great. I have 10 test knitters working on it right now and I'm so excited, and it's great to see what they are creating with my pattern. It's just great. I'm going to talk about it in my next podcast. Also, I still haven't finished the stitch on markers for my shop because I was concentrated on the Annabelle scarf. I wanted to get it finished, the pattern finished, to get it all sorted out for the test knit for launching the pattern in autumn. So yeah, I've been very busy and the stitch markers will be online soon, I promise. Until then, I wish you happy knitting and a lovely day. Bye!